Historic. It's a word we shouldn't take lightly.
We obviously have our work cut out for us.
But tomorrow night in Orchard Park, a packed house will watch a home playoff game for the first time in decades.
Our stadium is a whole nother place when we got the Mafia in there with us.
We'll play the Patriots in the postseason for the first time in the NFL era.
It's not easy to get here, and we don't take it lightly.
Oh, and with near record low temperatures.
My toes get really cold and they go numb a little bit, so it's keeping those suckers as warm and as dry as possible.
It's shaping up to be a classic, and we're getting you ready for the big game.
A special edition of the Two on Your Side Town Hall. Wild Card Weekend starts now.
And we're going to start with a live look outside as both the Electric Tower and Buffalo City Hall are lit up in Bills colors, among other local landmarks. This is to celebrate a second straight AFC East championship, a fourth time in the playoffs in just 5 years, and the second in a row to host a first-round playoff game. We're glad you're here with us for the Town Hall on this Friday, Football Eve, as we count down to kickoff, less than 27 hours away now, and following several storylines. We mentioned the historic nature of this postseason matchup between the Bills and the Patriots. Also looking at the injury report, not much there. The Bills very healthy as we enter the playoffs. And then, of course, you have the X factor, which we've been talking about, the forecast. No doubt Bills Mafia, though, is ready. You can see the signs all over town, including at City Hall, where the banners are back up. Plus in plenty of neighborhoods, including Josh Allen Town, obviously. And despite the bitter cold, with temperatures already plummeting today, you can see fans are already showing up at the camper and RV lot outside Highmark Stadium. We have a couple of great guests joining us live to start off the conversation tonight. Our regular Vic Carucci, he is our Bills insider and also a SiriusXM host. And Owen Daniels joins us as well. He's a two-time Pro Bowl tight end who played for the Broncos and the Ravens. But get this, he's also a meteorologist, which comes in very handy when we talk about this weekend. And Owen, I want to start with you. We're going to show our viewers here the forecast for tomorrow night. Single digits, even for tailgating, 6 degrees at kickoff. And if the clouds clear out, we could approach 0 before the end of the game. Wind chills could be below 0. When we talked with you, Owen, last year during the playoffs, you said that the worst weather for football is rain, snow, or wind. Would you rank the cold as fourth, or when it gets this bitter, does the cold become more of a factor?
Okay, yeah. So we're getting talking about this colder weather, these colder temperatures, then that definitely becomes a factor. It becomes a factor with the field conditions, a little bit icier in some spots. I tend to notice over the years that outside from the numbers out to the sideline are a little bit colder, a little bit icier than the middle of the field for whatever reason. So there's a lot of different things that guys will try to do to stay warm on and off the field. And whoever's staying warm, keeping their toes and hands warm will have the upper hand.
You mentioned the toes there, which we think about because Josh Allen just talked about that. We're going to hear more from him and talk with you more about the weather in just a second. But Vic, let me ask you, as we look forward to this game tomorrow, we've seen two different versions of the Bills, the two times they played the Pats this season, one that ran the ball well, the other that got really run over. What are you expecting this time around?
Well, the nature of those first two games is the first thing I look at. It was when the Bills season was in this rocky, up and down sort of thing. Were they even going to make the playoffs? That was a question asked at some point after all the Super Bowl dreams that preceded this season. They got themselves right. That New England game was a big part of that turnaround. Different mindset. I think this third game, you got the great familiarity that was already there, but it's even greater in the current context, seeing a team for the third time in a short time span. Is one thing. The other thing is attitude. This is the win or go home. This is the beginning of a journey. And I think the mindset's got to be very different from what those regular season games were, just because of what these stakes are for tomorrow night and beyond.
Vic, it's interesting. I was just in the newsroom as I was walking in here, and I went past kind of our satellite desk and got walked by, who pops up there? Bill Belichick. He's talking live right now about this game. I thought, oh, that's somebody we don't want to see right now. He's been a real boogeyman around these parts for 2 decades now. It's easy to understand why so many people have this idea that he's just going to come in here with a completely different game plan. He outcoaches a lot of coaches in the NFL. How much of a factor is that going to be? I mean, I know Sean McDermott was asked about that a lot this week.
Yeah, look, I think to some degree it's overplayed. I say this with tremendous respect for Bill Belichick. I believe he is the smartest coach ever in this game, the greatest coach ever in this game. And I've been able to fortunate to cover his entire career as a head coach and watch it evolve to this. That said, he was a lot smarter in New England when he had a guy named Tom Brady as his quarterback. And we're seeing these last season and this season, it's a different deal. Yep, they're back in the playoffs, but now with a rookie quarterback. And those are the biggest questions that hover over that team. Look, the Bills have a really good staff too. And as far as the coaching chess match goes, I know he did that extreme thing the last time, limiting his rookie quarterback to only 3 passes. But as a whole, I don't think that it's about the genius of Belichick. I think it's about the talent that he has coming with him to Buffalo and matching up with the better talent that the Bills have.
Yeah, the talent or lack thereof when it stacks up against the Bills. Owen, I mentioned this a moment ago. Off the top of the show, we had this little clip of Josh Allen talking about how the cold impacts his toes. I want to play a little bit more from Josh as he faced all these questions this week about the impact that the weather is going to have on this game. Listen.
It'll be a challenge. It's not fun getting hit in the cold. It's not fun catching, hard passes in the cold. Getting off the ground is it's a little more exhausting throughout the course of a game. It's more of I think, mental barrier than it is a physical barrier, if anything.
So, Owen, for those of us who've never played in the NFL and certainly never played in this type of cold that we're going to see tomorrow night, how would you prepare? I mean, as a former player, kind of put us in that mindset of the Bills trying to get ready for tomorrow night. And also, if you can touch on, you were a tight end. Josh Allen is known for throwing rockets, and he actually mentioned in some of his news conferences how hard it can be to catch a ball when it's coming that quickly in that type of cold.
Yeah, you spoke about the preparation. I'm not sure what the weather forecast was up there this week or what conditions they had to deal with. I'm guessing it wasn't as cold as it's going to be this weekend. That's really the only way you can prepare, right? You can't simulate the cold. You can only be out there and work in it and practice in it. So hopefully they are able to do that this week and be outside. And like he was saying, it is a mental barrier. So it is whichever team it becomes a distraction for, the cold that being, is the team that's going to struggle as the game goes along. I played in some really cold games. In my tactic, you can forward this along to Josh, is tape some hand warmers to the top of your socks and then put your shoes on, and your toes will be nice and toasty all game long. So even when you're on the field, where it's coldest, the sideline is kind of a little bit of a false sense of security. It's very comfortable on the NFL sideline, no matter what the temperature. We got those heated benches and the heaters, like the jet engines on the sideline. So it's nice and toasty there with the jackets. You get on the field, you want to keep that blood flowing as much as possible.
Yeah, we like that advice. We hope that Josh is always watching the town hall, but especially today, if he can take that to warm up the toes, because he has talked about that being a particular concern. Vic, let me bring you in on this. This has been discussed all week, the impact that the weather is going to have on this game. And it was interesting to hear Owen say, the mental aspect of it versus the physical aspect.
Yeah, and he's spot on with that. If you're letting anything bother you other than what you're supposed to do, what your assignments are, and so forth, that's usually the beginning of the end for any team. I will say that Sean McDermott did a little old school stuff, had the frozen football thing going on in practice, which he said was probably the best way to prepare to catch those balls. I have no idea. I defer to Owen totally on whether something like that actually makes a difference, but that is what Sean said was being used in their prep.
We are out of time. We got about 30 seconds left. We'll bring all of us together here. Owen, the frozen balls, did you guys ever do that when you were in Denver or in Baltimore?
We didn't, but we did practice outside with the cold balls. And, as far as it stinging more or hurting a little bit more, I think really the thing is it's a slicker ball. You know, it's not as grippy as it is when it's a little bit warmer. So that's going to be a factor, whether it's catching the ball or carrying it and holding on to it and having that ball security all game long.
Great conversation here. Vic Carucci and Owen Daniels. Great to talk with both of you. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.